Good morning, greetings, and God bless you. I want to thank you for joining me on this week's edition of Soul Call Friday because everybody has a soul, but not everyone's soul is in their control. I have a very special guest with me this morning. I'm excited about it. I'm looking forward to what's going to happen. This is Alvin. Alvin, introduce yourself. Greet the audience and tell us a
Hello,
little bit
audience.
about you. Yeah, how you like that? Well, you do that on Sundays anyway, so you got it down pat.
Yes. So my name is Alvin. I have the honor of working and managing several men and women for a large business. I help sell
Mhm.
vehicles currently at a dealership, and I have a lot of fun doing that. And I also have the honor of working at the Congregation of the Mighty for the Lord Jesus Christ
Yes.
and serving in several capacities. The biggest one is just for me running a men's group
Yeah.
that you have allowed me to steward at this time, and I'm very grateful for that opportunity. And the other one is I do the GRN broadcast, just welcoming folks into our congregation and encouraging them to come see us.
Mm.
So that's always fun because a lot of times you feel disconnected, and I have the opportunity to connect with the followers that are not here.
Yeah. Isn't that great?
It is.
It is great. And you've been with us a little bit. We've enjoyed the whole bit. You're a husband
Yes.
and you're a dad. You have two beautiful sons who have enough energy to probably light a stadium.
Don't tell nobody.
They could light a stadium. They are brilliant, brilliant young men. I'm looking forward to it. It's been a pleasure watching them grow. Your wife's an adorable woman.
Thank you.
But one of the things that you and I have talked about and discussed, and that is your concern about fatherhood and parenting.
Yes.
That's a hot button for you. Tell me why. Not that beyond, I just want to be a good dad, but there's something. This is coming from a real place with you.
Yeah. I would say if I really lay it all on the table, it stems from one point in time not wanting to be alive because I said, God, if this is the father that you gave me, then you can't be God. There's no way you would have done this to me. You love me too much.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had a crossroads in my life where I was suicidal and I was unsuccessful at trying to take my own life.
Mm.
And I just had so many problems. Not that my father was bad, because as fathers, we're limited to the knowledge we have, and we're limited to our connection with our Heavenly Father. So it's up to us to really go after it. And I just, as a child at that time, I just didn't know how to get any answers. And
What was lacking in your relations or your requirements of your dad? Because clearly some specific things that you as a child, as particularly a son, needed and didn't think that you could get it. What was that?
I think just a genuine relationship with me. I definitely had nice gifts. I probably had gifts better than most people in the world. You know, my dad worked extra hard, 2 jobs, and I would have, like, I had a moped before, I had a dirt bike, I had video games. Like, I definitely got good gifts, but the gifts couldn't replace what I was missing and lacking in the relationship with my father, and just being able to talk to him and not feel, defeated or beat up. And if I couldn't learn to his level of capacity, many times I felt like, I don't want to ask you for help because this is difficult and you're not making yourself approachable to your son.
Wow. And that's important. And that's important for many, many sons and many men who are fathers. Because you have that one model. You either have the model of no dad and you're everybody's child, or you have the model of an indifferent father, or a father whose father spirit was never nurtured and developed to the point that it could nurture and pass on that nurture to others. So that type of dad lives in self-defense, lives in pride and image, lives in preservation of self, lives in demands. But there's a heart valve there that says, I am not going to let my son become what I am or become what I wasn't. And when you're a dad, that dad father heart valve can adversely affect even your opinion and your perspective of your son. As a matter of fact, if you hate yourself, you'll hate your seed. If you distrust yourself, you distrust your seed. And so many times that's the case. And I'm getting a sense of your dad having made strong vows to be strong no matter what. And he defined strength by his survival, not necessarily his thrival.
Correct.
So that's something that maybe we could talk about a little bit more when you think what you wish you could have gotten from this man who was generous materially, but 100% closed emotionally.
I think you're I don't think I know that that's right on the head, Dr. Price, and I definitely appreciate that. Just expanding on that. So my father does not know his real father. Come to find out, and that's just since I've been here in Oklahoma, we've
Mm-hmm.
actually found that he was a military man. His name was Alcano Johnson,
Mm-hmm.
and he actually passed away.
Mm.
And that actually hurt me because when I got that news from my mother, in my head I said, I'm not even carrying my own name. I
See?
said I'm doing all this stuff for nobody, and I don't even know who it is, whose legacy I'm carrying around.
Mm-hmm.
And so I struggled with that for a little bit. And I guess my wife didn't understand, or most folks don't understand, but as a man, your name is a lot to you.
Mm-hmm.
It's who you are, the seed of where you're from. And so I said, I'm carrying around someone else's name. And I tell my family that we're building a legacy, and it's something that's strong to our family and our home. To circle back to the other piece is that I'm sure my father didn't know what to do because he didn't know his father as well growing up.
No template.
And he would never be, I don't want to say emotional with me, but never open up and share things with me. But he would teach me how to do tithes, offering, put my first money away. The man was financially savvy, and he taught me a lot. And that's probably why I'm in this arena that I am today, because he set me up financially. Like, this is what you need to do to be successful. And so I have 5 brothers and sisters total, including myself, and they always wanted to borrow from me because my dad established me in such a way that I was fruitful. And so those things he had down packed, but the father-son relationship, he didn't know what he didn't know.
But it didn't exist in him. And see, that's what we don't realize, that, the soul is architected in a way to handle every major domain of our human experience. Every major domain. So he doesn't have a dad. So guess what never woke up? The father, son, dad thing. So he couldn't be because you can only be as good a son as you are, as good a dad rather as you are a son, because you're working on a model. So how did you get past that? You said you were suicidal for a little bit. How did you get past that? And was your father instrumental in helping you get past it, or you just hid it from him?
Well, I had to tell everybody. I'll never forget it after it happened. I told my mom, and the next day at church, I kind of just, I had a moment with Jesus, I guess you could say, and I just started crying and stuff. She's like, "What's wrong?" And I told her everything, and she's like, "We're going to get you help." And so I went to a Christian therapist. His name is like Alonzo Duncan. Thank you if you see this. But he just helped me get past, again, some of the soul issues. And the biggest thing, they're not soul issues, because unfortunately, let's be honest, Dr. Price is the only one doing this. If you don't know, you just need to check it out. But he helped me work through some psychological things and some things that were trauma to me. So the first thing that he said is, you got to learn to forgive. And I think once I began to forgive, then I could start to move to the next stage, which is, okay, Lord, what can I improve in myself? And so as we begin on that journey, and I started to love my father again, because again, he only knows what he knows. That wasn't his intention. His intention wasn't to be a bad dad. He was just doing what he knew.
He gave you what he had.
He gave me what he had. And so as I began to do that, I noticed that he started to change and started to reach out more and started to, hey, want to do this and want to go there. And my mom even said, like, he's a better husband. So as, again, praying from a state of, hey, I love you, and God, whatever he needs, if he needs me to do X, Y, and Z, show me, Lord, help me to be a better son. And as I just began, again, exploring those opportunities and options, things started to change.
How long did it take, would you say?
I would say a little bit over a year to see the sprinkles. And then I would say 4 or 5 years to really see a difference, because, anybody can start something just like working out. But once he saw that it was real and it was genuine and it wasn't going to change,
he could trust it.
Then he started to buy into it himself.
Wow. So when you were doing this whole suicidal contemplation, what did you think it would do for you? Like, how did you think it was going to solve what you were dealing with? Your absence from the planet, maybe, or whatever. What is it that was in your mind that said, you know what? This is going to be better than that?
I just felt like I wanted the suffering to end, and I just wanted to be loved. And I think most people, the human side of us, wants to be loved. And I couldn't get that anywhere. My mom is the most loving person you'll ever meet.
You got a great mom.
Thank you. And I thank God for that, because I think without her, it would be very hard to be in the spot I am today. But I just wanted to be loved from my father, and I wanted that recognition from him. I wanted that applause and everything. And I think I'm 39 years old. I only heard my dad say "good job" one time, and it was when he came out to my home and he saw my home and my job and everything. He's like, "Son, I'm proud of you." I'm 39 years old, and I just heard that probably within the last couple of years, and that was like, he finally said it. And so as a son, that's something I've always wanted.
Earned it.
I did, but I was like,
because you can't demand it. Sometimes we demand more of our parents than we earn. And when I say earn, I mean not earn as in payment, but then we win.
Yeah.
and you finally won it.
Yeah.
And that is, nobody can take that from you, you
Right.
know, because if he had said it all your days, then you would have been at peace, you would have been at firm, but you wouldn't have had that rub that
Yeah.
makes you go against the grain. I'm going to show him. And so you actually turned your defiant
Yeah.
into pursuit
Yep.
and excellence. And I think that's great.
That's exactly what I did. I wanted to be a lawyer for a long time, and I'm sure he would even say the same. I said, I want to be a lawyer so I can sue you. That was my motivation. I
Yeah.
was getting really smart in school, and I was doing this, and I was just becoming a savant
And you're
in
going to
certain
sue him
things.
for what? What are you going to?
It was just my motivation. I was like, I'm going to figure it out. But eventually it started to change, and I started to, again, like I said, move in love and forgiveness, and then it allowed me to be free from that bondage, because it actually brought a bondage to me. And I was able to move away from that and become closer to the man God called me to be.
So how did all of that, let's just take all of that and package it up, and we're going to now, it's now packaged in your soul. How did it affect the way you've parent today? And why is it that you still feel like there are some deficits and shortfalls that you have in the way you parent your children as a father?
I think that's an excellent question. And the reality is, I'm going to say some of them are generational curses that I'm seeing, and God is making me aware to through discernment. So I'm being awakened to them so that I can pray against them and break those bondages. Some are just habitual. So some things that I've just done for so long. So my dad taught me to make my bed. He didn't say why to do it, but every day, like I'll tell my wife, hey, make the bed. She's like, just this is the first thing you do before you do anything else. Yeah. But now, after doing research, I found out it's because you want to win. You want to start your day with an accomplishment. Yeah. And those little accomplishments build up and make men and women feel more achieved throughout their life and help them pursue things. So I just never knew the why, because I didn't have that relationship that my father, that I wanted with him. And
so if he had done better at giving you rationale, reasons for why he was so rigid or why he was so exacting and stringent, if he had just given you reasons, you feel that would have made a difference?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So you feel like it would have made you more obedient or more spontaneously obedient?
I think it just would have helped me appreciate him more in the moment and just be able to speak with him more. I don't have any uncles, but my dad had a lot of brothers growing up, and so they became my uncles, and I could talk to them more than I could talk to my father. And they would even tell me, you know what, that's not how your dad is, but they would come to the ball games, the basketball game, they would support, they would coach me, that do the things. Not to say my dad never did anything, but they would help those gaps or areas that he wasn't.
The socialization, that social piece wasn't there.
Yeah.
And it seems to me like he was a little bit shy.
Possibly, yeah.
And very shy and very insecure, unsure of himself. And so rather than say anything wrong, he would say nothing at all. Well, of course, that leaves your conclusions open to whatever you can deduce.
Yeah.
But let's get back to your sons.
Okay.
So now you feel like, I wish I could do what with my sons, or I'm working on what with my sons. And I'm asking you this because typically my experience has been that people with your kind of story go one of two extremes: overly strict or overly indulgent, and finding that middle ground. Overly strict because your father was strict and you want to be like him, or because your father was lax and you felt like you could have used a lot more restraint, maybe structure in your life. Then overly indulgent, and that's just a retaliation thing. I'm just going to get you back. My kids are never going to have to know this or that. So let's talk a little bit about how you chose the path you chose and where you found that middle ground.
I would say that I definitely, he was strict. And so the reason that I started off that way is because I said, well, I ended up like this. It can't be that bad. And I said, if nothing else, my sons will never go to jail. I'll be the one to be their police or their authority versus someone in the street, because they're not going to be as nice as I am. And I'll be setting them up for their future. Whether they like me or not today, it doesn't matter. I'm setting them up for the future. And so that was kind of my mindset or my thoughts. Just like you said, very rigid, not being able to be mobile, and having some people like, you don't need to be that tough. I'm like, no, these are my sons. I don't want them to end up like your children. And so a lot of times when I would see children, because this is how my dad would talk to me, he said, see that kids over there? They don't have any good home training. And he would say things like that. So it implanted into me that that's what people think is bad. So now if I see my kids do anything out of pocket, I say, I'll reel them right back in. And I find myself, if I'm not cautious, saying some of the same sentiments that he said to me. And I'm like, oh man, I sound just like him. And so I have to make sure that, is it coming from a place of this is to protect you, or is this I'm just falling back into the habits or the things that I've heard because it's in my soul. And like you say all the time, it didn't get there overnight.
Mm-mm.
It's not going to be fixed overnight or resolved.
No, it won't be. But I will say this to you about parenting, especially with children, because I was raised not only strict, but I was raised kind of brutally. It
Yeah.
was a little brutal.
Yeah.
And so I
I know that
understand that. Yeah, it was tough. It was
Yeah.
challenging, but it makes you who you are.
Yes.
You know, because despite the skin or the outer wounds and trauma, it's something is rooted in you. It roots resolve,
Hmm.
and that was important because it makes you tough. But I will say this: most of the parenting we see today, and I'd like you all to listen and you can weigh in on this, is based on the wrong reason to raise a child.
Yes.
Because we either want to raise our children to repair, to retaliate, to compensate, but it becomes all about us. It's the me thing, that is a lousy reason to raise a child, and mostly because whatever you're doing it from your memory, which is imperfect, but you're also doing it from an era that no longer exists. So that pretty much invalidates many of your rules, your motives, and your principles. That candy store on the corner has been gone a long time. That is not there. So you cannot raise them based on your positive or negative experience about that candy store.
Absolutely.
So raising your child on your history will also frustrate their destiny.
Yes.
The other thing that we like to do is raising our children on our fantasy. What didn't happen, what woulda, coulda, shoulda. That is how you become indulgent. That is how you impose your lack, your losses, your disappointments, and on your kid. And your kid is like, but I don't like that.
You in the house.
Yeah, okay, but yeah, and this is my house. So you like it because you're in my house. And so you're raising your child now so you're blending nostalgia with fantasy.
That's good.
Now, don't we see that? Isn't that what Disney's all about?
Yes.
Isn't that what Potter and all of those things? It's about the fusion of nostalgia with fantasy, so your child grows with no sense of reality and no permission to discover theirs.
Mm-hmm.